Last concept video, I went over my ideas for a Blue Lock home console game, and it did very well. And a lot of you shared your own ideas to help create the perfect Blue Lock game. So today, I'm going to go over your best ideas, as well as some other ideas I've come up with to create the ultimate Blue Lock video game that everybody wants. First off, last video, I said that the only anime football game was Captain Tsubasa, but I kind of sort of forgot that Inazuma 11 exists, so oops. Look, I'm sorry, okay? Fats suggested Blue Lock collabs with EA FC 24 to feature Blue Lock characters, which could work in theory, but they'd either have to make Blue Lock characters look realistic, which would be cursed, or just have anime characters playing alongside real players, which would probably also be cursed. But it's not a bad idea and would be much simpler to implement than creating an entire game, but we're here to discuss the ultimate Blue Lock game, so let's get back to that. Last video, I introduced some unique concepts and you guys had some ideas to enhance them. The biggest gameplay concept that I just completely forgot about was flow. Joshy Boy suggested renaming the Ego Meter to Flow Meter, but I actually have another idea. Keep the name as Ego Meter, but introduce flow to this very same meter. Have it be that once you fill up the meter entirely, then you can enter flow. This will be a power-up state just like in the manga that will temporarily boost all of your players' stats, but the drawback is that it continually and quickly uses up ego. Lazakuwiz, I'm going to butcher so many names in this video, suggests introducing flow as a separate meter, but I think keeping them as one meter makes the most sense because having too many meters could get complicated and the conditions needed to increase both meters are the same. They also suggest that performing poorly can decrease this meter, which is a good idea. And finally, while in flow, they suggest that performing well has the meter decrease slowly, whereas performing poorly has it decrease quickly, which I really like. That random dude also suggests including a chemistry meter, which I think is a great idea. To build upon that, I think this chemistry meter could be used to create chemical reactions, which would be special moves between characters. To generate points in this chemistry meter, you need to cooperate with your teammates, such as by passing and assisting shots, but there will also be a dark side to this meter. In order to perform a chemical reaction, both players need to be in agreement to do so. This will be initiated through the first player, and the second player can either accept or decline, but there would also be a third option, a devour option. Both players can choose to devour the other, even the one who initiated the prompt, but neither will know what the other chose. If both players chose a chemical reaction, then they perform a combined move, such as a Bachira long pass to an Isagi direct shot. But if one player chooses to devour and the other chooses a chemical reaction, then the one who chose to devour gets their ego meter instantly filled, and the other's meter gets instantly depleted. However, if both players choose to devour, then both players' ego meters get depleted. I think this would be a really interesting concept, but it might be too complex to choose in the heat of the moment, but again, I think it would be a great representation of the egoistic nature of Blue Lock. TTV brings up a good point, and that's that the character behavioral patterns would need to be very specific. For example, Otoya needs to have good off-the-ball movements, and Karasu needs to focus on the opposing team's weak point. They suggested this would take a lot of work, and most developers would be fine with slapping a Blue Lock theme on a FIFA knockoff, and well, they aren't wrong. Let's move on to characters. First off, Lil Mer Gaming says that Ego should be added as a character, and truthfully, I have a very vivid memory of me planning to add Ego to the character roster, and somehow I just completely forgot. So Ego would be an additional master striker. There's some more Blue Lock NPCs that I didn't add that we might as well add, those being Aiki Himizu, Akira Endoji, Haruhiko Yuzu, Kairu Saramadara, Kyohei Shiguma, Raiji Hiragi, Shizuka Haji, Shingen Tanaka, Taiga Tsunazaki, Tetsu Sokura, and Yukio Ishikari. These guys aren't Blue Lockers, but we're also going to include Chairman Hirotoshi Buratsuta and Japan U20 coach Yasumori Hoichi for shits and giggles. Also, apparently I mispronounced Lavinio's name. I'm probably getting that wrong again. I definitely mispronounced more names than just his, but sorry. Now let's get to the character creator. The biggest point of contention when it comes to character creation is whether or not weapons should be randomized. Jesus Vera suggests that there be a random chance at getting a weapon. I disagreed initially because I think that a lot of people would want to be able to have full control over their created characters, but Chromie countered by saying that most people would simply just turn off the random weapon rule, and that would defeat the entire point of having a random one in the first place. They had a neat idea of having an open sandbox mode where you can use any weapons you want, but not in other modes. Saber Beast suggests that for your initial weapon you choose from a pool of 5 to 10. So here's my compromise to try and make everyone happy. The random weapon pool only exists in story mode, and you were given 5 random options and can pick one, with more being unlocked as you progress through the story mode and enter training arcs. If you care enough, then you could just keep quitting and reopening the game until you get a weapon that you like. These story mode characters will be playable in any game mode, but there will also be free play only characters that you can create that, hence the name, will only be playable in free play. In terms of online play, you can only use story mode created characters unless you're playing a free play lobby with friends. There's no limit to how many story mode characters you can make and play as, so you can run as many different campaigns as you want to create as many different types of players as you want. And then, when going to online play, you can choose any of your story mode characters to play as. Speaking of online play, that's something I didn't really touch upon in the first game. Like I said before, there'll be story mode, free play, and training. Free play allows you to build any team of any characters and create any characters with any abilities you want. Training is the same deal, except you have full control over NPC movement so you can practice certain scenarios. Saber Beast also had a really interesting idea for a second game mode, that being one based on the second selection. In this mode, you would get a random team like the second selection and function the same way as it does in the show and story mode. In terms of online play, there'd be a few options. Like I mentioned before, there'll be free play lobbies which act the same as offline free play except you can play with others online. In terms of basic online play, there's ranked and unranked. Then from there you choose the number of players you want to play with. The standard would simply be 1v1, each player controlling their entire team, which they pick themselves using their story mode characters and regular characters, but there's also an opportunity for there to be up to 22 players at once. You can either queue for a certain number of players like a 1v1 or any combination up to 11v11 if, for example, you have a group of friends you want to play with, or you can just leave it open and maybe get put into a game with 21 other players. Altrio suggests this idea and it sounds hectic as hell, but also really fun. Let's move on to story mode, in which there would be 2 different paths you can take. This would be inspired by Captain Tsubasa's new hero mode, as well as the ideas from Saber Beast, Steve, and Nobody Knows. For the first path, there's a canon path. You still get to play as your own character, but you follow the canon storyline, meaning that all of the players that get eliminated in the manga get eliminated here, as well as every major story beat playing out the exact same. However, there's also a non-canon mode. In this one, you start off in a completely separate stratum than Isagi's, filled with new original NPC characters. Here, the outcome of the story can be completely different depending on how you play. For example, you could bring your team from the first selection into the second selection, and from there you could form a team with canon characters or with non-canon characters, which could all result in a different U20 match. As for this mode, you get a complete control of your teams at every selection, aside from the first selection, which will be randomly generated, but from there, it's up to you to choose your teams. Another component of the story mode that would be available in both paths would be training arcs. This is suggested by Brian Bobbitt, and they said that during the second selection it should be possible to undergo training to develop your weapons and ego meters. Saber Beast also had a similar idea of introducing actions, such as developing weapons, improving ego, etc. on a day-by-day basis. I think I would combine these two and make it so that you can choose one action in between each match, and your action is your own choice. So it could be to develop a weapon, upgrade a current one, increase your max ego meter, or improve one stat. To build on that, every time there's a point in the story where the character is specifically trained, you get a larger boost to one of your actions, such as the training done between the first and second selections. So with my ideas and your guys' ideas, I think we've come up with a pretty fucking awesome Blue Lock game. I know this will realistically never be released, but a man can dream. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you have even more ideas, then feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear some more. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.